Hunter Valley Vineyard region of New South Wales is located 2 hours north of Sydney and is a popular tourist destination for world-class wines, food and events. We journeyed on a sunny spring morning to visit Hugh Griffiths at his new passive house-inspired off-grid property in the heart of the wine-growing region. This three-phase estate is an exemplar of what is achievable in modern off-grid properties and demonstrates how the nexus between sustainability-inspired ethos and architecture is being supported and enhanced by standalone power technology. Well, Hugh, thanks for joining us in the lovely Hunter Valley. Another sparkling day. There seems to be a lot of sparkling days lately.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for coming out and visiting.
No problem. You obviously chose the Hunter Valley because it's beautiful, and you had an ethos to build a passive type property here. Tell us a little bit more about that process, and then why you end up having to go off grid or choosing to go off grid.
Well, there's a family connection up here as well. So I actually grew up in the Hunter. It's sort of one of the reasons why it was an interesting place for us to come. My partner, who's from Germany originally, very much loved this area. And so we were actually looking for a property for about 4 years, looking for the right type of zoning, the size, everything like that. And so when we found this, it was pretty magic and pretty special, and we were very excited about it. And the journey and the dream was always about the passive, environmentally sustainable product that we would be able to build and live in and have a comfortable lifestyle. And so we'd always wanted to do this, but also share it with people. And so we had a couple of cabins, and when we did the DA and things like that out here, we've got this beautiful cabin that we've finished and we'll have a little tour of, but we've also got potential future ones that we could build if we want to as well. So the ethos was the big thing, as you mentioned, which was environmentally sustainable, and essentially trying to capture the magic of this place and really fit into the landscape as much as possible.
You weren't intending necessarily at the beginning to go off grid, or was that always part of the ethos, or was it because of the challenges of the site that led you in that direction?
It was always part of our consideration. It wasn't 100% that was what we were going to do. The starting point was very much, okay, is it off grid or on grid? And to make that decision, we had to speak to a couple of companies off grid, as well as how we would actually connect this. So the ethos piece came into it because it was always part of our journey to be sustainable, and so we liked the idea of off grid if it was possible. The second piece was logistically for this project. We wanted to have cabins around the area nestled into the landscape, and so it didn't mean that you could have just sort of one spot where the energy would be, which is a really important thing that we had a lot of consideration about, and probably would later we find out increased costs in other scenarios. And then the third piece probably was that costing part and the control of where the infrastructure would go. And we'd liked to have the control of that, to be able to tuck it away and nestle it into the property versus maybe having pylons through.
So this is sort of ethos interconnecting practicality in the end to sort of guide you in this direction. And you mentioned there about having the aesthetics of having a beautiful site and then not having to have power poles running through it. So these things start to come into play. It's not just the cost base or not just the ethos. It's like, well, do I want to see those things when I'm looking out from my bedroom or whatever?
Exactly.
So, but then you're looking at these decentralised elements. So you've got a house and a number of cabins, and how do you distribute to those? And so they were some of the challenges, obviously, from my point of view, that then I had to sort of converse with you and share that information and get you guys to understand that. In the context of the entire build, which is a huge project, this the off-grid element alone is a big learning. How did you find that whole nexus between the build and the off-grid scenario?
It was just a myriad of different challenges that we went through. I think dealing with the whole project itself, the thing that we learned the most was just the amount of decisions and detail that can go into everything that you do. And that's from all the detail that you'll see in the property and everything that we've thought through with that, how we've done the roads and the infrastructure here. And then, of course, yes, the off-grid piece. And this was the amount of detail that we worked with on that to get to the solution that we ended up with was huge, and we had to partner very closely with yourself to really understand. You had to understand what we were trying to achieve. We had to understand the information and how the loads impact and why certain products would do certain things and how that would work. And well, hang on, what if you went from single phase to three phase? Or what if we looked at different cooking appliances or different appliances in the property to reduce the loads in these areas? How could you achieve that? And so I think the detail and the decision making for it is just having the information and taking your time with that process is so important. We've gone really modern, I think, as you can see from a lot of the finishes. The stone tile that is used throughout the cabin to really create that consistent feel for it. We've got German kitchen. My partner is German, so we've really gone for that kind of a feel, very high quality product.
So this whole unit here, kitchen moves and sort of ties into your laundry here on the side, which is what you call a pod laundry. Is that right?
Well, I guess this is how our architect described it to us. Is it's all one sort of piece that all connects together, and so everything's sort of hidden here. You've got fridge and freezer, and you've got pull-out pantries, and actually got a lot of storage in here for very comfortably having 5 adults. Yeah, as we move through here, this actually opens up, and so you can see that we'll have a bit of a laundry. We've got again consistent with the bench tops and everything else throughout.
It's so nicely, neatly tucked away there. You don't have to look at it, but it's all there if you need it.
Exactly right. Yeah, so built-in robes, just for, essentially more than people could use if you were just up here for a weekend, but the idea would be someone can come and stay here for 3 months as well and feel very comfortable.
So this is what you describe as a main bed?
Yeah, it's a bit the master of the main bedroom, I suppose. Has a beautiful feature windows, you can see, a little desk nook to work from as well. Daybed idea, and then
that'd be a very cosy little daybed, especially in winter with the sun coming in there. Nice and
exactly right. Exactly right. It's beautiful. It's a really beautiful spot. You get a little bit of direct sunlight, especially from that westerly sun coming in. But you get this beautiful view as well going out there through the vineyards. And then we've got a second bedroom, which is our. The idea of this is that it was customer built in bunk bed, but that would be very comfortable for adults as well as for kids. So the idea, we have a lot of friends that may have 3 kids.
Yeah.
So just we needed some sort of solution that would be able to have them very comfortably. But also, if we had multiple friends coming up, well, maybe they would want to have.
There'd be a few crash outs there after a big night up in the vineyards. So, window.
Yeah.
So it's part of the passive house ethos that you're talking about, and they have multi-functions here. So it can go, it does a special click on the handle.
Yeah, exactly. So that locks it.
And that one opens it that way. Wow, yeah.
And that one clicks it and has a little, like a louver. It's all about the seal with these windows. And so they're double glazed. And the idea is that with the passive house that you don't have the thermal bridge from the air outside to the air inside. This
also is a very flash bathroom.
It is. It's got underfloor heating, so you've kind of got everything that you would need. You might want all the creature comforts, and so we didn't. That's. And we'll talk a bit more about that with the off-grid piece, but we've managed to achieve all of those things very comfortably.
So you hear that? Underfloor heating, off-grid. Can be done.
Air conditioning, everything here. But we've also kept, very smart on, say, the toilet that we've used is, the minimum water that you need. So because we're off-grid, both power and water, we've really thought about all these things. Obviously everything's LED lighting, so we're trying to minimise the reduction of the load as much as possible.
Well, you've done a very excellent job, I would say, and this is all, it's run through the whole...
That's the underfloor. It's only in the bathroom.
Only the bathroom. That's just for the underfloor.
Yeah, that's the underfloor there.
And how long does that take to come online once you sort of... So it's just warm pretty quick?
Yeah, sort of 30 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. So it's got a timer on it, and it comes in every morning.
Yeah, and that was a direct element one, wasn't it, I think?
Direct element, correct, yeah.
Usually I'll get I was sort of saying, well, how big? I think I said, how
How
big's
big's
the area
Yeah.
we're doing with that?
Yeah.
Because that's the real key. If you're doing the whole house, it's a little bit different than if you're doing. And then it's sort of more like, well, if you're doing the whole house, you do hydroponic. But just these small areas, it's worked out well.
Yeah.
Obviously, having gone through this process now, and that there's many people out there doing similar things in their own way on their own projects. What sort of learnings have you taken away, and what sort of advice might you give to people who might be embarking on a similar journey?
The most flattering thing that we get is everybody that comes and visits the property says, "Oh my God, you've done such a clever thing with the off-grid." They all say, "Oh, if I'm going to do it, that's what I'm going to do." So I think it's a really poignant question. I think explore the options. I definitely say, like, my biggest piece of advice would be really go through that detail, understand, okay, why are you trying to achieve it? What are your main goals here? And as you do that, understand this is why you would do it, and explore and be curious about understanding why it's so important. Because I think it is a lifestyle change in a way, or people think about it like that. What I would say is that we haven't thought about it since we put it in. And so as much as people think, it's going to impact your lifestyle, do I have to think about when I put the kettle on, or when I do make a cup of tea? Well, again, depending on the system that you design, the answer is no. And that's why going through those questions and understanding it is so important.
Well, that's really excellent to hear, because that's one of the things that I really sort of hang my hat on with my customers. It's like, you don't really want to know you're off grid. Ultimately, you just want your life to function as per normal. You need to have an awareness of it. You need to be aware of what you're doing, how you're doing it to some extent. But if it's designed well, you've done all that preliminary work, you don't need to be sitting there thinking, I was turn the washing machine and I can't run the kettle and all that sort of stuff. So, that's been put aside for you guys. So you didn't, obviously then in the off-grid solution, you've got things like underfloor heating, you've got air conditioning, there was multiple sites that were going to run a pool, potentially, things like this. There was no limitation from the off-grid technology side of things and what you could do, other than, I suppose, the cost involved. Did you find that a surprise?
I mean, in my background and where I work on is, I thought scale was always going to be possible, but I didn't know how we would achieve it. And I think the other piece was future scale. That was the bit I was a bit concerned of. Was, well, we're going to build definitely these three buildings first and have that off grid when we got to that decision. But then, what if we want to do more in the future? Are we enabled and set up here to be able to do that? And that was where I think I was really impressed with the solution that we came up with, because we've got the opportunity to go and essentially double everything we've got already if we wanted to. And so we did, because we brought in off-grid energy so early, we were also able to design, add a couple things in our shed to enable us to have the best solution even there, versus trying to retrofit something later.
Exactly, that's a really good point, and that's we work with people with over long periods of time, and it doesn't always necessarily have to be like that, but having an off-grid solution or a solar solution that's integrated, is considered from the start as part of a design process, does give you a different outcome versus something that might be done after the fact, just down to the simple things like orientation or pitch of roof and things like that. So, as an example, in your case, the site sort of forced us in a direction, because this is a very shady location. There's large trees. You want to keep those trees as feature trees. There's rules around what you can and can't do with regards to taking trees down. And so the shed had to be a particular design, and that was something that was sort of, I don't know, I think it was obviously influenced from my side to you, then back through the architect.
It was.
And we ended up with what is a great result, really, which was, a single sort of pitch roof, in the optimum direction. In really what was the only site on the property that was going to allow us to do that.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, going into that, we never thought that would dictate where we do the shed and how big the shed is and what the size is and everything like that.
It dictated a lot, didn't it?
It did, and it's custom built for that. But again, it didn't impact us negatively, but it was just that we had the information up front that we could make that decision to do it that way. And so, like you say, it's a skillion roof. It's got a 200 square meter. We thought we can fit a lot of solar panels on top, and we've got more space for more if we need it. And so I think that just having that conversation and having all this is, if you can give me anything, I think that's the thing you said to me. If you can give me like the perfect thing I could have would be this. I don't know if we got it absolutely perfect. We got pretty close though, I think.
Pretty close. It's pretty close. Yeah, no, it's a really beautiful shed. Did a really great job, and it ticked a lot of boxes. We have a little bit of a shade condition on one side, but for the from the east in the morning, but from a solar guy's point of view, I think we did really well. Is there anything that you would have done differently in the process? I mean, there's a lot of learnings in this. I mean, we talked about the challenges already, but what would you do maybe even from a design point of view or from from the solar point of view? Is there things that you would have changed?
No, there's nothing that I would actually change with our system design. There's nothing that I would change with our the way we did the shed. I think the outcome that we got with every element that we looked at has been amazing. And like I said before, we don't even think about it working now. It's there. We have power. We wake up in the morning. Even when it's 2 or 3 days of no sun, we're still sitting here with the air conditioning or the heating on if we need it, and it's totally fine. So, yeah.
What a fantastic result. So let's go and have a bit of a look at the system in a bit more detail, and we'll see what runs this amazing property.
Fantastic. Let's do it.
So this is the Spronius system, which is the SP Pro electronic and Fronius combination, generally regarded as the best combination that you can get with regard to off-grid design in Australia, at least. These electronic are Australian-made units. In this case, we have 3 SP Pros, and we've generated a 3-phase off-grid system. You can have 3 SP Pros on a single phase, but in this case, they each run a phase. Now, Hugh, we did that. You would recall the process. How come we are 3-phase on this system?
We're 3-phase because the initial loading that we all did was single phase, but we found that we could actually stretch everything that we had here further with a 3-phase system.
When we're talking stretch, we're talking about the distance of cabling, particularly to cabins,
and keeping keeping more. So we're not going to use as much in that distance that we're going to use because we're going to move the cabins around the property. That will be.
So there's a cost. As you get further away from the distribution point, from your power point, the cable size has to rise to allow for voltage drop. When you're running hundreds of meters, single phase systems can require big cables, which are quite costly. So the 3-phase design allows that, the cables obviously have to get bigger, but because there's bundles of 3, it means that we can run longer distances and create efficiencies. So this is all part of that consideration for long-term planning and how the site is intended to operate with what we call a decentralized or a centralized decentralized site. And this is often quite a thing. It's like, what are we doing here? Do we have lots of little off-grid systems, or do we have one big off-grid system that deals with the site? And certainly from my point of view, my recommendation generally is to contain it as a centralised system within a certain limit. It can't be really half a kilometre away from your loads, but usually within 100 or 200 metres can be achieved. And there's an economy of the scale of this type of build. So 3 SP Pros, two Fronius 8.2s. These are with 22 kilowatts of Trina solar on the roof. And then we have Power Plus Eco in a rack here. Still got a couple of extra slots. Couple of loose teeth up there. 17 Power Plus Eco, 68 kilowatt hours of storage there. And these racks, of course, you can add the extra battery storage in, and indeed, if there was a need for more storage, you can duplicate the rack as well. And we did leave space there for that scenario, so we could have another 20 racker there, which would be a expansion if you needed it. So we had that up the sleeve, probably won't be needed. And then this is your big main switchboard.
Key on top of it.
Live TV, folks. Okay, so in this situation, we got your AC and DC breakers all in the one board, and then your main solar supply switches, and then your main breakers for your power. But this is not generally the distribution board. The distribution board is actually, in this case, just outside. So our main sub for the site is outside. Certainly a beautiful machine.
Absolutely, yeah.
Of course, very high quality generator, connected, and I would always recommend that. And this generator happens to be inside at the moment, but the intention is to actually move that outside. It's not a great idea to have your generator inside the shed, even if it's separated. It certainly needs to be exhausted out. So there's a few things that need to happen on this generator. It's actually not, because you're using the system not significantly, it's not really cycling the batteries down. You haven't even needed to run the generator.
That's right.
So far.
We've tested it, but I mean, exactly as we said, where the design is always to have it outside, but for right now, it's simple to have it here. It's plugged in, but it's not being used, and we can't go below 80-85% of the storage that we have.
Select live. So here's your monitoring. Select live's down here. Do you use your select live monitoring when you're away? Do you check it on? You check the app?
I think, to be honest, what we did at the beginning was check it a lot. At the beginning, you really want to know, and that's part of the journey, is understanding how each of your appliances actually use the system. So we used it a lot, but as soon as we realised that we weren't going below 80% of our load and couldn't even when we were here, we still check it occasionally, but it's not really something that we're heavily.
So when you're back in Sydney, away from the property, was it handy to look at?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it just gives you certainty on it.
To see what's happening.
Yeah.
But
Awesome. Right, and obviously having connectivity is handy from that point of view, but connectivity also helps in this case to achieve extra extended warranties. So having Select Live installed allows Selectronic to have the extended warranty, and it also allows us as the installer, but the ongoing service provider, to be able to check out any issues if they were to arrive by logging into the system, which is really handy. So it's pretty much, look, you can have internet anywhere these days, and it's really important. It's preferable to have it connected to the internet for that reason.
It's a great feature.
Rightio, well that's it. Awesome. I think it's been a great little tour, and appreciate you showing us around.
Cheers.
Thanks again.
Anytime.
And happy off-gridding everybody.